Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review, Deftones' Koi no Yokan. Deftones are a California rock band, and one of the few to be considered in league with the nu metal movement of the late 90s and early 2000s, but are still taken pretty seriously in the music world. And in retrospect, their music was much more well developed and less hokey than a lot of their imitators who sort of came out of the woodwork once songs like Change and My Own Summer hit the airwaves. For sure, Deftones had a heavy, modern radio metal sound, but they mixed that with some very atmospheric, beautiful, and ethereal elements as well, kind of bouncing back and forth between these two sounds on any given song. Now, the band has kind of become one of those groups who has one awesome, amazing album, White Pony, that is constantly compared to every single thing they do afterwards. And while the self-titled LP the band dropped in 2003 did not live up to the success of White Pony, it really didn't live up to it for more than the reason that it was not White Pony. I mean, the usual amount of melody and just harmony and sonic beauty that the band brought to the table wasn't there. Deftones for sure were trying to go heavier, but they're really not one of these massive, heavy, badass bands in my opinion. However, in my opinion, the band bounced back big time with the album Saturday Night Wrist, maybe my favorite Deftones LP post White Pony. Deftones were sounding as heavy as their self-titled LP, but just newer, more modern production had them sounding more lush than ever. I mean, that beautiful, more atmospheric side of the band just got bigger and better in my opinion. Chino's vocals, Chino Moreno, vocalist, frontman, the way his vocals are mixed on this LP, the way they soar over the rest of the music just kind of gives me chills. I mean, to me, the band's sound just grew to a galactic level on this album, and they started incorporating some elements of music outside of alternative metal, the sounds of shoegaze as well as post-metal, post-rock too, I thought. And I would say art rock too. There were spots on here where I thought, man, has Deftones been listening to some Radiohead? While this album is still, you know, definitively a Deftones album, not something that I think is going to win over haters. You know, it certainly sounds like a Deftones album on the surface. They were definitely working to just add in other elements and make an album that I thought was much more mature. It's albums like Saturday Night Wrist that really justify the admiration that Deftones got as they plowed through the 2000s. You know, because when it comes to alternative metal and when it comes to nu metal, it wasn't the jump the fuck up riffs and the vocal delivery and just the grooves with the catchy choruses that made the genre bad. What made the genre terrible and stale is that many of the genre's all-stars kind of refused to change and grow and evolve. And when some artists did try to change, they went even kitschier by trying to hop on the whole rap metal bandwagon. Now, even though to me Deftones were sounding fantastic on this LP, Saturday Night Wrist wasn't a winner for every Deftones fan. Definitely not their heaviest in their catalog, and some people do like them sounding heavier, which is where kind of Diamond Eyes comes in, which is by no means a bad album. To me, it's kind of the LP that their self-titled album should have been. While it does come off much more straightforward, much heavier, much more riff-oriented, it does kind of have a certain level of finesse to it that I thought the self-titled record lacked. But now with the band's new LP, I kind of feel like we're getting a bit of deja vu here. Back in 2003, when the band had a really hard album coming out, shortly afterwards, they put out a much more atmospheric, ethereal, and experimental LP. And now we have Koi no Yokan, which, in comparison to its predecessor, like Saturday Night Wrist, is much more atmospheric, kind of ethereal, but only a bit though. While this LP is definitely not as heavy as Diamond Eyes, as far as Deftones' atmospheric or more experimental side goes, this LP doesn't really bring anything new to the table. Now that Wrist and Diamond Eyes are under the Deftones belt, it kind of feels like Deftones as usual. The LP opens up with the track Swerve City, which is this song that, to me, dishes out one of the most basic riffs that I've ever heard heard this band play. There's nothing really extraordinary about it, and the song kind of glides effortlessly from verse to verse with really no detail or tension or build-up. The song Romantic Dreams is even more lacking in structure. The verse and the intro is pretty good. It's moody, it sets a tone. Chino's vocals come off as very passionate, but then this riff just comes out of nowhere that changes the entire feel of the song. It really comes off as very pasted on, and the chorus on the track is even more out of place. The track Entombed sees Deftones taking a kind of ethereal, atmospheric approach, slower, it's a little more ballad-like, melodic. I do like the chorus on that track, but still, that song and another track on here like Graphic Nature, which is much more hard-hitting, one of those Deftones tracks where you get kind of a weird, quirky, noisy riff that has a strange groove to it, but then it slides into a very smooth chorus. While these tunes are by no means awful, it's really just kind of Deftones by the numbers at this point. And the song Rosemary, while I did like what the band was trying to do with that track, definitely do something slower, break things up. It's the longest track on the entire LP. There's a beautiful synthscape kicking the track off. But as the band transitions from kind of one slow, blobby moment to another, the track does kind of lose momentum. As far as highlights on this LP go, certainly the track Leathers, Stop Me in My Tracks. Really one of the most hard-hitting and energetic songs on this entire LP. And the way the riff goes and the lyrics, the screamed vocals feel against that riff, it's got a strong post-hardcore vibe to it. I really am. And I really do think the track may have the best chorus on this entire LP. I love the vocal melody on this track. The song Poltergeist has an extremely memorable riff to it that just sticks in my head. Really, I mean, came out at me on this LP as I listened through it numerous times. And the song Tempest, while at first it does kind of feel like your average Deftones song, and it is a bit quieter, there are some just surprise explosive moments that really kind of catch me off guard even as I listen to the track again and again and again. It's a nice shock. Not to mention the track has another solid chorus, and the song Gauze has another solid chorus as well. Nice down-tuned riffage on that track. And what I like so much about that particular song is that, yeah, while it is catchy, it is straightforward, there is a bit more detail in the song structuring on that track. And to go back to kind of the complaint train, the closing track on here really just kind of feels like another one of those stereotypically very quiet closers that, you know, wasn't particularly beautiful or pretty or even felt like a closing track. It just kind of felt out of place on the rest of the LP because of how sort of underwhelming it was. You know, while this album wasn't terrible, and to an extent I did like it, I feel like the Deftones at this point on this album are kind of in a very comfortable spot. Definitely not working to do what they usually do, and that is find some interesting ways to fuse other styles of music and just new sounds with their metal stylings. Again, I feel like this LP goes back to that Saturday Night Wrist territory, but this album kind of ends up being less expansive, less atmospheric. It's sort of the middle ground between Wrist and Diamond Eyes, which may please some fans a lot. But to me, those two records are great and are totally representative of that more ethereal and just heavier side of Deftones. For the band to just make a record that feels like it's in the middle, I don't know, you know, those extremes aren't there because of that, and because those aren't there, the excitement is sort of, you know, dampened. I'm feeling a light to decent 6 on this LP. What did you think of it if you've given it a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? What should I review next? And that's it. I hope you're well. Thank you for watching. Anthony Fantano, Deftones, forever.